Hi guys, girls and people with alternative pronouns. Welcome to Ray's Painting Place, and in this episode we're going to be having a go at one of these. We'll be building it, painting it and weathering it. Okay, so this is the Stuart kit from Warlord. It costs something like somewhere between £17 maybe and £20 maybe, depending on where you get it. This one was off Amazon. It's a nice little kit. I've built one before. The turret can be quite fiddly. I think some people have had problems with it. Personally I haven't, but I guess that maybe that depends on past experience with plastic kits, perhaps. I don't know, but I've had no problems myself. I've built this previously as the this version, the version on the box front, with the corner camouflage for my 8th Army. That turned out quite nicely. As I said, the kit went together well, really. No problems at all. This one I'm going to be building for my Burma army, so it's going to look something like this, I guess. It's going to be built as a Mark III, I think it is. There's that many different little variants, though. You do have to be careful because the instruction sheet isn't as clear as it could be, let's put it like that. So check your army list to make sure that you're building a version that your army list allows. For example, it's possible to build this version here with a flamethrower. Well, that's not available in all selectors, for example. So make sure you're building the correct one. I'm going to be building one that I want to put in my Burma list when the mood takes me. It won't have the flamethrower. I'll be building it as the normal standard one, if you like. Although I'm going to be making a few little modifications here around the track guards, but only tiny little bit, just to square that edge off, because I found a nice little photograph on Tinterweb of a suitable tank that I'd like to sort of, aim for the look of. It's got a lot of stowage on the front. It's got what looks like, I think it's an anti-grenade net. I'm not absolutely sure. On the front it might just be a stowage net. I won't be modelling that, but I will be modelling some of the stowage boxes on this side. There's, I think it's either a medium machine gun or a machine gun of some kind, all rolled up in netting. I'll show you the photograph. But I've got some of the I've also got the stowage pack with the tarps and rolls. It's imaginatively called. There's other junk mixed in there with that blister. You don't get all of that if you buy tarps and rolls. There's jerry cans and bits of tracks and stuff like that in there, which is in the other pack. But some of the things in there, there's a nice sort of tarpaulin or something rolled up, which I'm going to put on over this track guard. Up here somewhere around the top of the turret, I'll be hanging a helmet, or maybe two, as the mood takes me. So yes, it'll basically be looking something like that without the flamethrower. I'll get stuck in. Like I said, I've built one of these before. Ooh, look at that free unboxing video while you're at it. Ooh. I've built one of these before. You get transfers and some data cards. Those transfers are the wrong ones. Hey, thanks, Warlord. That's the universal carrier transfers. I'll ping them an email about that, and hopefully they'll sort it out. So that's not terribly useful. I'll have to have a look around the spares box and see what I've got. But you're meant to get, it says it on the box, doesn't it? Yeah, you get this. There's a particular Stuart transfer sheet. You see that? Yeah, there's a particular Stuart transfer sheet. You get the white, red, white flashes that go on the turret here and the various bits and bobs. So that's good. You've got some damage markers there, which is great. The not wonderful instructions. This again is close to the one we're going for, the look that we're going for. We won't be having this side skirting on. That photograph of the tank that we're sort of aiming for hasn't got this skirting on, so I won't be using that. But it has got this stowage box near the front. It will have some tarps over here. The instruction sheet is a bit confusing because there's an awful lot of information crammed into it, and you have to pay very close attention to these little symbols to make sure that the symbol next to the tank that you want to build, you have to make sure that you only assemble the bits that have got that particular symbol in it. So for instance, if you've got the desert rat symbol, that only applies to the desert rat model, and so on. So not amazingly clear, but if you take your time, you should be okay. Instruction sheet and 2 frames. This particular kit, I do like it. As I said, I've built it before and I thought it was good. The frames are very crisp. There's not a lot of flash cleaning up to be done. The tracks fit, which is great because sometimes they don't. You've just got to be careful of the numbers of the individual parts. Be very careful with that. Double check with the instructions so that you don't put the wrong curvy bits in the wrong place, otherwise you'll get into trouble. And as I said, be careful that some of the parts, like these tanks here, these tanks here don't apply to certain models, so don't just stick it all on for a laugh. Take your time and have a look. So I'm going to crack on with that, I'll show you how far I get a little bit later. Okay, right, that's the basic kit built. As you can see, I've removed some of the front mudguard, whatever the hell they're called, arrangement here to expose the tracks at the front, both sides. I've done a similar thing on the back. There's like a mudguard that's there and there, and again I've cut them off because on the photograph of the prototype they seem to be missing. It looks like they've been removed by the crew on purpose, so I don't know why, but still. I'm not going to model a camouflage netting or whatever it was at the front, stowage netting here. I'm not going to do that. I've gone for a rolled up tarpaulin here, and a little bit of crew stowage on the side. So we've got a helmet that's been hung off one of the ports, and a backpack with a mug. Hooray! So we can get a bit of fun on that. Decided to go for the top machine gun in the end because it looks like it was fitted on those tanks, on the British tanks. I thought it wasn't, but it is. So yeah, nice looking kit, nice looking model. So next stage is to prime things up. I'm going to be using a brown primer. for two reasons. First reason, I don't have a green primer, otherwise I might be tempted to use that. But the brown primer works particularly well, I've found, because if you miss a bit, it looks like mud, which is great. So yeah, I'll be priming it a dark brown colour. I think it's called leather brown. It's the AP spray. So I'm going to spray all that in brown, and then I'll show you what that looks like before I move on to the base coating. Okay, right, back in a bit. Okay, there we have a nicely undercoated brown tank, which is great, apart from it's brown. So we will be putting some base coats on next. The main colours will be the bodywork, which is going to be in reflective green, the tracks, which are going to be black grey, the rubber on the road wheels will be black grey also, as will the machine guns. There's one around there as well. The three machine guns will be black grey. The heads of the tools, the metal parts of the tools, will be black grey. I'll be leaving the handles brown. One or two details, but only very small. The helmet will be yellow olive, and the crew stowage, the backpack there, will be green grey. The tarpaulin I'll probably leave brown, I think. We'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to do all that, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, right. Those base colours are now on, as you can see. It's looking quite tidy. I've been around trying to clean up a little bit. We've made mistakes and stuff like that. Maybe got some of the black grey on the wheels rather than the tyres, and sorted that out, so that looks nice. Managed to snap off the machine gun at the top there, which was great, so that's glued back on again now. The little bit of stowage there is painted up nicely, so we're all ready to start putting the detail on, shall we say. Although there's nothing really stopping you from at this stage sticking the transfers on, the way you go, really. It's quite a nice looking little model. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some washes on to start the detailing process. I'm going to put a dark tone wash on the black grey areas to bring them down a bit. I'm going to put the military shader wash over the tarpaulin, which in the end, by the way, I painted German camouflage extra dark green, although I left the brown straps showing, but I think it looks quite good in green. I'm also going to put that shader on the stowage on the turret as well. And then the other thing I'm going to do is try individually, very carefully, to put a little blob of wash over the rivet heads, wherever they are, and let the wash pool around the rivet, let it pool in the gaps between the various plates, and so on. And trying to get it on the flat areas, stuff like that, because I don't really want it there. But where there's gaps where, you know, various moving parts meet, or where there's areas of armour meets armour, joins, that kind of idea, let the military shader, green, it's basically green ink, watery green ink, let that collect in there, because it'll give it a nice shadow effect. So I'm going to do that next. And when I've done that, I'll probably pop around with some more refractive green, just to tidy that up if I've made a mistake or whatever. So I'm going to put those washes on, and I'll show you what that looks like when that's done. Okay, so the wash is on. Black wash over the grey and the military shader over the bodywork. I've highlighted up the tarpaulin and the little stowage bag on the roof. That's done as well. The mug still needs painting, but I'll do that later. Next stage now is to actually start the weathering process. And the first thing I'm going to do there is we're going to be using this mud and grass, which is the stuff that I use for the bases of the men, the Burma infantry figures. I use some of this as a basing material. Well, we'll be spreading some of this in around the wheels here, the road wheels here, and around the drive sprockets and stuff like that. And the other product that we'll be using is the European mud, which is basically like thick paste or texture, and we'll be adding that here and there. So I'll get ready with that, and I'll actually show you how I do that, because I think it's worth looking at in some detail. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is put some mud and grass on the suspension. I have a one of these dental tool things, and basically I get a nice blob of this stuff from the depths of the jar. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's like little fibres that are in a paste, and it gives a nice greeny, muddy, textured look to it. So what I'm going to do, a bit too much there. Yeah, what I'm going to do now is take a small dollop there and just apply it here and there as if it had been crushed into the road wheels, and the mud had become you know, a bit encrusted on the various bits and bobs onto the mechanical parts. And I don't want too much. It's just to give an impression of grime, you know, garbage that's collected and accumulated in amongst the mechanical parts, because obviously it won't be too gunched up, because the movements of the wheels, you know, in the normal scheme of things will make it fall off. But here and there, hang on, there we are. Here and there looks good, you know, just a little bit of nasty. Like that. And you see what's going on there? So it's stuff that's becoming tangled up with the wheels, and you need to think about where this stuff might actually end up as well. So, you know, it might fall onto things from above, so it might collect there and there, for example. Yeah. Sometimes it would even come off the tool. There we are. So you know, take into account that it's got to kind of look realistic, so it might have fell off the track or something, or got caught up as the tank has crashed through the undergrowth, you know. So that's some nice textury stuff there. Okay, now I haven't done too much on these wheels here, because as I said, I feel like the mechanical movement of them would have sort of cleared the gunk out. But what might have got encrusted there and dried is good old mud. Mud, glorious mud. So this is the other product, which is, again, it's like similar stuff, but this hasn't got the fibres in it. Okay, this one's the European mud. To be honest, any of the muds out of the range will probably do. Just pick one that you think looks good for your tank's you know, area of operations. This is like a, I don't know what you'd call it, like a general purpose browny colour. Mud's brown, right? But you can get stuff that's a darker peaty mud if you might be on the Eastern Front, perhaps, and you might find yourself in the desert, in which case you want to go for a sort of a lighter colour. You can put any colour on, but then you're going to have to paint it if it's not right. So you might save yourself some time by choosing one that fits, if you see what I mean. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm drifting off camera with not paying attention. I'm just getting some general muddy, textury grime here like this, stuck between those little holes on the wheels there. Yeah, that looks quite nice. And again, I'm trying to put it on the upper surface and drag it down a little bit so it looks like it's maybe, you know, fallen off this top track somehow. As opposed to being kicked up. It's sort of, and this stuff's quite thick, so it's not really like dust and it's been lifted off the floor or splashed like really runny mud. I mean, this is proper gunkiness. Put a bit more behind there, like that. So that's the process of putting this stuff on. Apply it, there you go, as you see fit, but I wouldn't go too bonkers. I don't think I've gone completely mad, or maybe I have, but it'll look okay once it's sorted out. And I'll do that to the other side, and I'm trying to keep this mud, or at least these two effects, sort of, you know, below this level. So I'll be doing the tracks on the other side. I'll apply some to the front here and a little bit at the back, because by and large, you look at the photographs, these top areas aren't actually muddy, because as I said, you know, you can imagine the tank going through some deeply muddied areas, but not really such that the mud would come up here. It would get splashed and dusty, but not really covered in the goopy stuff. So I'll do this on the other side of the tank, on the front and the rear, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, right, there's one suitably manky tank, or a manky as we now like to call it. Mud and grass and garbage on the suspension, a bit at the back there, all there in the road wheels, so a little bit of stuff on the front deck there, so that's pretty good. Right, next thing to do is to use some of this stuff, which is pigment. This is an umber one, although there are different ones, and again, it's up to you what you like. I'll be mixing this with a bit of water, a bit of pigment binder. If you don't use pigment binder and you just use the water, or you just brush the powder on, you might find it comes back off again. So the pigment binder will help everything gunge up together. Now this stuff is tricky to work with. It's easy to go wrong, and I'll try and show you why, if you see what I mean. A little dollop of pigment binder, a little splash of pigment binder. I don't really need much. And then some of the powder, like that. And that will make you a dark looking paste. And you won't be able to see that on the palette, but I'll try and show you on the model. And then if you can see it on the brush. But the problem is that when you put it on, can you see it there? There, it's the wet looking stuff. It's extremely difficult to judge how it's going to look when it's finished, because when it dries nothing like the colour it goes on at, because it's quite wet when it goes on, obviously, and it's very, very tricky to judge what it's going to look like when it's finished, because it will dry noticeably lighter than the stuff on the brush, and even that there on the tank. But that aside, what I'm doing here is the pigment is giving you a little bit of texture, nowhere near as much as the mud that we put on earlier, just a little, and the water and the pigment binder allow you to change the characteristics of it, if you like. So I want a kind of a dirty, grimy, splashed kind of effect here across the back. So if you like, you've got that really gungy stuff here that's hard dried on chunks of earth, but then this stuff is splashed up. You can dab it on quite randomly like that. Usually looks quite good when it's done. You might need to just feather it in almost with little tiny dabs, just to kind of give you a transition from dirty gunge to reasonably clean tank, if you see what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that bit dry, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like when that's dry, so you can appreciate the difference between how it goes on, and how it dries. Shall I show you? I'll show you that next. Okay, there we are. I'm going to call it done as far as that's concerned. It's got a nice grubby look. I don't think it's too mental, given the fact that it's meant to be a Burma tank. There's a nice, got a nice effect. The dried mud there, dried mud on that bit looks good. Back doors look good. Front looks completely gunged up, which is great. I've finished this stowage bit. You might notice the mug has been painted. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm going to put some transfers on it, and then it'll be done. Just a note on the transfers: when you put the transfers on, when you've been using the pigments and that, I mean, you might do this anyway, but definitely make sure that you put some gloss varnish on the area that you are going to put the transfer on. So for instance, this is meant to have some like bridging discs and stuff like that down on the front, but I figured that, you know, where they're going to go underneath all that gunge, so I think that's lost and gone forever. So the here on the side you might put some gloss varnish on, wait for it to dry, put the transfer on, and then put matte varnish over the top to seal it. The gloss varnish is really important, because if you don't do that, the slightly rough texture of the pigment will mean that the transfers won't stick properly, or you'll get air bubbles and you get the second silvering effect. So bear that in mind. So yeah, going to put a couple of transfers on. Bearing in mind I haven't got a transfer sheet, if you remember. I've got the Bren Carrier transfer sheet, so I'm not quite sure what I'll be able to do, but I'll just ignore the fact that there should be some flashes on that, but maybe it would be there and that's gunged up. Maybe it would be there and that's gunged up, so I'll be alright. But I'll put some numbers on the side there, and maybe put the squad coding, I think it is. It's like it's either a square, a triangle, or a circle, depending on what they're in, what squad they're in. So, or troop, I suppose it might be for these. So I'm going to get that done, and then I'll show you how it looks all finished. Okay. So there we are. The Stuart's finished, and before I give you the big reveal, and you can see what you think, I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I know it's been a bit of a marathon, this one, but there's been a lot to do. So like, share, subscribe, stick a comment down below, let me know what you thought, and thanks very much for watching. Bye.